On behalf of AIN and Timeless Women of Wonder, it is my absolute honor to welcome you all to our International Women's Day 2026 Global Convening. Today's theme is bold and very necessary. Give to gain, from contribution to ownership. Such a powerful theme to wrap your head around. And as we like to frame it internally, from community contribution to global ownership. So this is not just another Women's Day conversation. It is a very strategic one, okay? Um, because in our vision for this particular program, we are looking for a shift from recognition to results. And for decades, women, especially African and the diaspora women, have contributed enormously to various economies. So we build families, we fund communities, we run enterprises, we send remittances all the time. And I'm sure our diaspora community can relate very much to this. And we also lead quietly and boldly, but contribution is definitely not the same as ownership. So today we ask deeper questions. Who owns the assets? Who controls the capital? Who shapes the institutions, and who sits at the decision-making tables? So this gathering is about reframing women not as beneficiaries of systems, but as builders of them. And I want this to feel like a room where we are all thinking together, okay? So before we dive in, I just want to let you know that feel free to pass your comments, whatever your reactions. I want to see those reactions. The thumbs up for the things you agree with, thumbs down for the things you don't agree with. You can add some extra reactions, whatsoever. Your questions, your reactions, everything should be in the comment box. And please make use of the reaction buttons because, it just makes us know you're going along with us. And during the various segments, we're going to have one or two live questions taken during segment one, and the remaining questions will be addressed towards the end to ensure we stay on schedule. So let's make this very interactive, very powerful. I love it when women gather. There's just something about women supporting women, and I'm so glad we're all here to do that. So to properly open this gathering, we will hear from the visionary founders behind today's convening. And it is my absolute pleasure to first introduce the founder of African Investment Network, a woman deeply committed to connecting capital, opportunity, and impact across borders. Jane Osei believes that investment ecosystems must be inclusive, intentional, and globally connected, and that diaspora capital must evolve from remittance to equity participation. Jane, we are honored to have you. Kindly give us your opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. And I am humbled to be here today. There are a lot of visionaries on this call. I want to make sure that I point that out before I start. But good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're joining us from different parts of the world. Happy International Women's Month and happy Ghana Independence Day. On behalf of the Africa Investment Network, I would like to warmly welcome you and thank each of you for the time you took to join us for this International Women's Day webinar. International Women's Day is always a powerful moment. It is a time to celebrate progress, recognize the extraordinary contributions of women around the world, and recommit ourselves to the work that still lies ahead. But what makes gatherings like this so meaningful is what happens when women come together intentionally. And it's important for us to do that frequently, actually. When we gather in spaces like this, we exchange ideas, we build relationships, we strengthen one another's leadership, and we create opportunities that extend far beyond the room, or in this case, beyond the screen. These conversations matter because they shape how we lead and how we build and how we invest in our communities. Today's theme, Give to Gain, from contribution to ownership, speaks directly to an important shift that many of us women around the world are navigating. For generations, women have been central to the economic life of our communities. We build businesses, we lead organizations, we support families, we mobilize resources, and we're good in doing so. And we invest our time, our talent, and energy in helping others succeed. And quite frankly, a lot of times we do that so much to the detriments of ourselves. Um, and the data reflects the magnitude of that impact. Women make up nearly 40% of the global workforce, and women-owned businesses are among the fastest growing segments of the global economy. According to the World Bank, women reinvest up to 90% of their income back into their families and communities, helping to drive improvements for education, health, and economic stability. Across Africa and throughout the diaspora, the impact is even more significant. Women are responsible for nearly 70% of informal economic activities. You know, the women in the markets and the women that, sell things on the streets, but all of that really contributes to the economic activity on the continent. And global remittances to low and middle income countries exceeded $650 billion last year, and that's worldwide. These numbers all tell us something different and something very important. Women are not waiting to participate in economic growth. We are already driving it. But contribution alone is not the full story. The next chapter is about ownership. Ownership of enterprises, ownership of capital, ownership of assets, and ownership of influence in the decisions that shape our economies and our communities. Throughout my career, whether working in international business or investment, or now leading the Africa Investment Network, I have been deeply passionate about leadership and about creating pathways for others to participate meaningfully in economic opportunity. At AIN, we believe that Africa's growth story, and indeed global prosperity, will be shaped by stronger connections between markets, entrepreneurs, investors, and the global diaspora. It's even more important today with the current geopolitical climate, and I think we all have to admit that. Through initiatives like the Global Africa Summit, we bring together policymakers, investors, business leaders, and innovators to accelerate trade, investment, and enterprise development across Africa, its diaspora, and global partners. But we also believe something very strongly. Women must be at the center of this story. Because when women lead enterprises, communities prosper. When women gain access to capital, businesses grow. And when women build and own assets, the benefits extend beyond generations because we pour back into our communities and into our families. Before we continue, I would also like to take a moment to recognize a valued partner whose collaboration continues to strengthen our work. We are so grateful for the partnership of Intentional Asset Management, whose commitment to expanding investment pathways across Africa and the global diaspora aligns closely with the mission of the Africa Investment Network. I would especially like to recognize the Chairman, John Morris, the CEO, Heather McGee, who I know is on this call with us today, and Sally Nyamani and Anas Atal, other team members, for their partnerships, insights, and continued support. Partnerships like these remind us that meaningful change happens through collaboration across institutions, across sectors, and across borders. And now, before we begin our discussion, I would like to invite someone special, someone very special, to offer opening reflections. It is my great pleasure to introduce my dear sister and collaborating partner, Her Excellency Nyakan June, founder and CEO of Timeless Women of Wonder. Nyakan is a remarkable leader and a champion for women's empowerment, whose work continues to uplift and inspire women across communities and across borders. Through her leadership and her platform, she has created spaces where women can rise, lead, and step fully into their purpose. Nyakan, I am truly grateful for our partnership and the shared commitment we have to advancing women's leadership and economic empowerment. Thank you for walking this journey with us. The floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, my sister and partner, Jane. Always remarkable to walk this journey with a like-minded leader. committed to our shared vision, not just to transform our continent, Africa, but to do it inclusively. A very, very warm welcome to you all. I want to take this opportunity to celebrate the great women and men who have joined this conversation today. These days, we more than ever, we need to live very intentionally, and we need to collaborate intentionally, even with men as allies. We have connected today to celebrate the International Women's Day, and by extension, International Women's Month. And I think we cannot be able to work in isolation of our partners in life, our men. However, there is still a case for us to give intentional attention to the role that women play and support women to really fulfill the utmost and highest expression of their calling. Today's theme is Give to Gain, and it's moving from contribution, community contribution, to global ownership. And when I reflect on the theme today, and I reflect on who we are as women and how we are connecting, not just as women, but as leaders, as friends, as sisters, as mentors, I noticed that we are key contributors to the world's ecosystems. Women contribute over 60 to 80% of smallholder farmers. In Africa, they're over 80%. That means women are contributing a great deal in our food security, food production. Women contribute nurturing, a role that is vital and mostly put on the back burner, but very vital and critical for human development. Women, in their contribution to nurturing, are imparting values, shaping narratives for the present and the future generations. Women contribute diverse talent, creativity, bringing unique flavor to life in all elements of our living. So you're talking about the elements that women bring even to our homes, to our music, to our sectors. Women bring resilience, which is so critical for the stability of our homes, our society, our communities, and nations. Women pour love, passion, and emotion to every element of their lives, starting from family, friends, work, into the visions, the ministries, and the calls that we all have. What is also so unique that is hardly spoken about is the contribution women bring in tacit knowledge, just intuitive knowledge that comes not by book knowledge, but by wisdom and experience, intuition that's birthed out of experience, out of consistent exposure, out of training and modeling, and most importantly, out of deep-seated desire and commitment to sustain the fruits from the seeds that they have worked so hard to plant. Naturally, women see beyond their today. They invest their time, emotion, resources beyond their today. They think and feel far beyond themselves. Women also are key pillars, even when it comes to society and our spirituality. Women take time out of their already busy days to pray, irrespective of their religion, to just uphold the family. So one would say, even when you hear us speaking about the contribution that we bring into our various environments, women also tend then to shoulder a huge level of weight and responsibility. And today, as we're looking at the theme of Give to Gain, I would like us to go beyond these contributions that we bring into ownership. We cannot just contribute and then take the sidelines and step by the side, expecting other people to think about what we need, to imagine what we need, and to do what we feel is needed while we're on the sidelines. We have to take the next step and become co-owners of what's going on around us, whether it is in our legislation, whether it's in our policies, whether it's in our markets, whether it's in capital, whether it's in asset acquisition and management, whether it's in how our education is flowing, whether it is in what's going on in our healthcare, whether it's the value chain around our food and agricultural production, we must move from the sidelines of just being contributors, but find a way to take our places and spaces and begin to take ownership of the reality of our present and future. So as we engage in our conversations today, I invite us to be so authentic, to have conversations, to engage, even as we sit back and listen to our esteemed speakers share of their experience and wisdom. And we who joined the call today, let us bring in conversation, insights, comments, contribution. We are moving from contribution to global ownership. Okay. And my desire is, just as we do in TWOW, we have to move from talk to action. That when we gather like this, when you see the partnership and the collaboration that we're demonstrating through the partnership of AIN and TWOW, under the leadership of Jane and myself, and so many great others that we work with, we're already demonstrating the power of synergy and collaboration. A lot of the esteemed speakers already on network are people already in our ecosystem, and it's through great collaboration and sisterhood that we do so much with the little that we have, and it becomes great. So with that, I just want to pass over the conversation back to our great moderator, Gabriela, who is an amazing, amazing young leader, championing change, not just in West Africa, but on the continent. And I'm sure that we're going to have a great conversation with her guidance and with Yvonne's guidance throughout. Welcome, be ready to engage. And I hope that we're able to hear your voices, whether it's in chat, text, or voice. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Her Excellency and Madam Jane. Thank you so much for such a powerful charge, especially around the importance of structured capital, ecosystem thinking, and highlighting the need to move from contribution to ownership. And with that, we now move into segment 1 of our conversation, from contribution to ownership, leadership, enterprise, and influence. This segment explores how women across Africa and the diaspora are building scalable enterprises, reinventing themselves, collaborating across generations, and shaping institutional ecosystems. Because ownership is not accidental, it's very intentional and it is strategic. And to guide us, we have 3 phenomenal women. First, we have Grace Krobo-Eduse, a leadership coach and John C. Maxwell certified trainer. Grace works at the intersection of leadership, transformation, and personal reintervention. She equips leaders to evolve intentionally rather than reactively. And she is the CEO of the Grace Center for Growth, where she works to develop leaders and support personal and professional transformation. Please join me in welcoming Grace Krobo-Eduse. Grace, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabriela. Thank you, Ambassador Yaka. Thank you, Jane, for having me. And good afternoon from Accra to everyone. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Grace. Good afternoon. And our next speaker is Miss Christine Musisi, a transformative leadership expert and founder of Inuka Ongoza Africa, a social enterprise empowering youth, women, and organizations across Africa. With over 30 years in development, including 27 years with the United Nations, most recently as UNDP resident representative in Tanzania. She brings deep experience in governance, gender equality, and inclusive growth. Christine, we are so honored to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And the last, but definitely not the least, we have Miss Shalom Muniyiri. Shalom represents what multi-sector ownership looks like. She is the CEO of Retro Group, which is a construction and innovation firm. She also represents what multi-sector ownership looks like, from infrastructure to innovation to personal development, everything intertwined. And she happens to also be on the board of Timeless Women of Africa. So, Shalom, we are so delighted to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. Good evening, good morning, everybody, and good afternoon. I think those who are in Accra. I'm honored to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversations that we'll be having. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalom. So, ladies, why don't we just dive into the first segment, starting by highlighting certain key concerns when it comes to contribution versus ownership. So, Shalom, this goes to you. Many women are deeply involved in growing businesses, supporting industries, or strengthening sectors, but they do not always control equity, assets, or final decision-making power. For example, in the construction and engineering field you find yourself, women may manage projects but rarely hold majority ownership in firms executing them. And this is not just seen in construction, it's seen across many, many different industries. So in your leadership journey, what did the shift from contribution to ownership require, structurally and personally, of course? Was it capital, confidence, negotiation, governance, knowledge? And what advice would you give to women who are contributing significantly but not yet positioned as co-owners?
Thank you. You know, that's a very interesting question, especially when you ask, what did it take to shift? First and foremost, it takes time, because you see, when you're shifting will take a change in your mindset, right? And mindset does not change overnight. It's something that you're going to need to feed yourself over and over. So I think one of the better places to start is what happened personally. Now, you need to get to a place where you have clarity of vision. It's very difficult to get into the ownership space when you don't see yourself as an owner. So you've got to get to the place where you're actually thinking, okay, you know what? I am an owner. I can be an owner. I can be a co-owner. So I consider co-owning a softer landing, because then you have somebody that you're going to share the risk with. But you've got to see yourself as that first, because culturally, women have been taught to sort of take the back seat or the supportive seat. So seeing themselves as owners is not very natural. So I would love to belabor that point. See yourself as an owner first, because then the rest is very easy to follow. So once you've seen yourself as an owner, then you need to trust the support system you have. Because as women, considering many of us would be starting from a disadvantaged position, there will be support systems along the way. Trust them, lean on them, ask for the help, so that you're growing towards what it is that you're seeing yourself as. Then I think the other thing to remember is that what we call meaningful contribution is very subjective. So you may consider yourself as a meaningful contributor to something, but the people you're contributing to or contributing with think, you know, they're sort of like entitled. So they think that just because you're a woman, that's what you should naturally be doing. And they're not seeing the work that you're putting into that particular project, right? So one of the areas that I have been extensively involved in is interior construction. Now, why I call it interior construction as opposed to interior design is because we ended up correcting the mistakes that men would make, if I may call it that. Because as women, we need to actually look at the space and think, what am I bringing in as a woman? I'm the one who knows how space will serve us best. I'm the one who knows what's safe for a child, what's safe for an older person. Because again, I don't know who mentioned that a woman brings her whole self and beyond. A woman thinks beyond where they are at. So because they're thinking about everybody, you're able to solve problems, not just for yourself or for the problem that's presented, but you're solving for a larger group of people. So in the interior space, one of the things that needed to change was first and foremost, show up confidently. Gabriela, you've talked about confidence. You've got to have that confidence. And you will get it from reading, You'll get it from interacting with people who are ahead of you, and you will get it from that just belief in yourself. A barrier that I had to overcome, and probably I should say that I needed to structurally become the owner of the organization to be able to call the shots, to be able to make that final decision. So what I did was register my own organization and start running the thing, and then ask for people to come and help. But one of the major barriers I had to overcome was a cultural barrier. I'm from Kenya, and you'll find that some of the artisans we had were from different countries. So for instance, I was working with somebody from Tanzania who was such a good craftsman, but he did not believe he can take instruction from a woman. So we had a bit of a fight at the beginning. He's the best guy for the job, but he doesn't know how to take instruction from a woman. So what did we do at that point? We settled on the money. Money has no gender. He wants money, I hold the money. So if you want it, hey, the instruction has to come from the woman, right? So when you're confident in what it is that you're doing, you will be able to overcome some of those. And again, something that women have, because of being, majority of us are naturals by naturals by nature, not by profession. We are naturals by.
Thank you, everyone, for joining again. And I would like to apologize once more for the interruption. We were on Shalom, just exploring what's in her leadership journey, the shift from contribution to ownership required. She spoke a lot about confidence, and I think that's where we were at. So I will just leave her to, continue flowing and talking to us so we can learn something from this amazing leader. Shalom.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I think I had seen some gentlemen at some point. We're talking about shifting basically from contribution to ownership. And I was just sharing a bit about what my journey has been like, especially in the construction, the interior construction space. And one of the things I had mentioned is that personally, some of the changes that I needed to take were changing my mindset, coming to see myself as a leader and see myself as an owner of a business. So structurally, what I did, as opposed to waiting to be given their job by somebody, I started my own company. Mommy? And started hiring people to do the job. Hiring people to do the job. And I just spoke about the challenge I had with an artisan who was Tanzanian, who had grown up not taking instruction from women. And here I was giving the instruction, owner of the business, and therefore giving the instruction. And so one of the things I had mentioned is that as women, we need to understand that money has no gender. So there's no female money, male money. So that should give you the confidence when you're standing in that position and you need to pay somebody. What do they need? Do they need to get instruction from a woman, or do they need the money for the job that they're doing when they're the best person for the job? So that was a big thing. So if I could give some tips about positioning yourself as a co-owner or as an owner of a business, I've talked about changing how you see yourself. Because if you don't believe that you can own, then why should anybody else believe you, right? They will just be forcing you to that position. Then find the vocabulary that is relevant for your industry, right? I had come from what we call corporate because I was working for a marketing organization. And the language there was totally different from the language in construction. It's totally different from the language of leadership. It's totally different from the language I am in right now, which is a mental health space and just trying to see that people are managing their well-being at work. So if you want to take this leap from just being a contributor to an owner, find the language, find the vocabulary, and learn it. Learn it from the reading, learn it from interacting with people who are in the industry ahead of you, and then show up consistently. Now, you will not get the authority or credibility of ownership if you're not showing up. So you can't be part-time, I feel like, emotional kind of owner. You will not run a business that way and nobody will take you seriously. And you're going to spoil it for the women who are taking themselves seriously. So please show up consistently if you want to actually make this leap into an owner. Then share your vision with other people. Something else that we have been taught in industry is that you have to keep secrets and you have to hold things tight to the chest. Men share these stories at the bar, they share this on the golf club, they actually enroll other people into their vision. If we can borrow from that, because that's something that I can say worked for me. When I shared my vision, I got people signing up to help me. And when they sign up to help me, they were not necessarily coming to claim part of my company. They were genuinely helping because they believed in the vision. So as we learn how to communicate our vision, share it with other people, enroll them to serve us and to serve with us, then we're going to be able to make that journey. The other thing that you must do is to develop what we call assets that you can leverage. Assets could be portfolio. There'll be other ladies talking about the details of different types of assets, but what do you have to show for it? Besides showing up consistently, and remember I said that meaningful contribution is very subjective. Not everyone will consider something meaningful just because you consider it meaningful. What do you have that's tangible as part of a portfolio or as part of anything that you can show that says, this is who I am? So for those who are in the leadership development space, are you writing books? Are you publishing articles? Are you doing something that will show you are a leader? Those of you who are in construction, are you actually building something and having that photographed and shared out there? Those who are, whatever field that you are in, do you have something tangible that you can actually say, this proves that I have what it takes? So yeah, those are the tips that I would give. But also a word of caution. Don't be in a hurry to co-own everything that you're contributing to, because you don't have to own everything that you have contributed to, because that can stretch you thin. I think once you start contributing, understand your journey, study the market, choose where it is that you would like to co-own. Because ladies, some places you're just okay to remain as a contributor, and that's fine. Contribute and leave. You don't have to serve on every board. You don't have to co-own every company, because you'll spread your finances too thin. And when you need it for that main thing, then it's difficult to have the money available. So I think that's what I could share for now. And I mean, we're not done with this. We'll keep talking. Over to you, Gabriela.
Wow, shalom, shalom. That's amazing. That's amazing. I definitely agree with you, especially with the mindset shift. I feel like everything just starts with your mindsets. Anyone that knows me knows I've been preaching this mindset, because you really cannot change anything around you if you don't have the mindset that drives what you're aiming for towards you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Very, very inspiring. Please do drop your questions, your comments, everything in the chat box. Please do drop it in the chat box. Okay, so I would love to just throw this question to Brianelle, if you're with us.
Hi.
Hi, Brianelle. Good to see you.
Gabriella, I can jump in here if you want me to.
Yeah.
We're flexing a little bit, everyone, because of a little bit of lost time that we had. And Brianelle, who's joining us from the Bahamas Embassy Consular Annex in Washington, D.C. She is the commercial attaché. Brianelle, can you answer, why do remittances so often stop at consumption instead of becoming equity or investment? And what can we do to change that?
Hi, Jane. Thank you for the question. Thank you for having me on here. It's an honor and a privilege to be among such great women today on this Women's International Day. So many generations ago, many women did not work outside the home, right? Men often earned the wages and women managed the household finances. From the money given to the household, women would carefully set aside small amounts each week to purchase sometimes meaningful pieces of land, refrigerator, small businesses. They would start small businesses. So in other words, women intentionally set aside small portions to purchase assets and to invest, right? So in the Caribbean and in Africa, there's a tradition called ASU. Each week, like women put aside, they contribute small amounts into a shared pool resource fund, right? So every month, let's just say if it's 10 of us put $100. So that's $1,000 we get a month, right? So instead of just sending the funds over, just say to Africa or to the Bahamas, why not invest in something tangible where we can have a return on the investment? So oftentimes we just send funds and the funds are not going anywhere, right? So now, like our last speaker said, Shalom, Gabriella, we must change our mindset. Everything starts within the mind. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So I believe that even within the African community, there needs to be a change in the mindset. There needs to be more education on finances. Even with this ecosystem, women coming together and helping within the community. So I believe that we should start within the mindset and with investments. So that's my 5 cents.
Thank you so much, Brianelle. I think Brianelle and Shalom have highlighted very key things. I feel like most of the time African women and even some, diaspora women, we've just been groomed to have a certain mindset because of the way we are trained, because of how society has already groomed women to always be in, the background, like Shalom highlighted. So I believe that there's a very strong need for reinvention as a woman. So Grace, this question goes to Grace. Leadership today requires a lot of reinvention. We see women who start as corporate professionals and then they pivot into enterprise, and others transition from supporting roles into executive leadership, right? And reinvention can feel a bit risky, sometimes it's just, should I not? So in your own journey, Grace, how have you strategically reinvented yourself to step into greater ownership of your voice, your platform, your enterprise, your cash flow? And how can women tell the difference between a distraction and a divine pivot? And just to highlight something briefly over here, I think we've had about 2 of our speakers so far speak about the religious aspect of an African woman. We tend to tailor a lot of things to spiritual stuff. So when are you able to see that, okay, this is a distraction, this is a divine pivot? How do we, see the difference between those two opportunities? Grace, please, if you may.
Thank you very much. Again, it's an honor to be here celebrating this August occasion with everyone. And thank you so much for inviting me, Jane, Ambassador Yakan. And to be among such phenomenal women and all the people who are with us today. Wow, reinvention. Oh gosh. I look at reinvention actually as a leadership strategy. I think is a really important thing, really. And of course, like me, I share, just like Shalom, I'm from that space of interior design. I'm a builder by profession and later studied interior design. So I became an interior design consultant. So I've had a couple of reinventions in my life. So, pivoting from one level to another. Maybe not just about levels, but, moving around as things, as life came around for me. I can't say I had strategy always, Now we use the word strategy a lot. I can't say I always had strategy, but I believe that God loved me and set me on a path. I guess He had the ultimate strategy for me, and I was simply following. So reinvention really has to be my primary survival and growth strategy. I have to say that. And I'll tell you one thing, my journey just didn't follow a straight line. You know, it followed a thing what I would call building, which is my background. I started as a building engineer and interior design consultant that I said earlier. And I also spent years understanding concrete. I love concrete. Yes, I know somebody like concrete. Who loves concrete? Yes. When I was growing up, I used to pass through this huge construction. They're building an inland port. I'm originally from Nigeria. They're building the inland port at the time. And this was like in the late 70s. And I used to pass there on our way to school every day. And I just loved the way it was taking shape from nothing and it was just taking shape. And that's what my first encounter with concrete. But then building from foundations to aesthetics. Later, I went and studied interior design in England. But I started to feel that shift, and I'll probably call it a call to move from building physical structures to building human potential. I think that's what I'll call it. From physical structures to building interiors. Shalom called it, did you call it interior construction? Yes, I definitely identify with that, coming to repair other people's mess, So I thought it was a call, really, moving on from building those physical structures and then helping people build their human potential. So where did that pivot start from? I realized that the same discipline required to keep a building standing is required to keep a leader standing. So I retooled. I became an executive leadership coach and a DISC behavioral consultant, amongst other certifications. I'll tell you one thing, like I said, it was not a straight line. COVID came, I had all these things going as well. And then I was busy with my interior design business. And then COVID came and there was nothing to do, right? And here I was with this, the only tool I had was the certifications, and there was John Maxwell, my friend, my trainer, and he was online also stuck in his kitchen, broadcasting, trying to touch a few buttons. And there he was, and I thought, gosh, I have this tool, and let me bring it out. And well, that's how one thing led to another, and I decided to take it more seriously. But and then, got certified and recertified and, redid a whole lot of things. And I started to just love it. Love, building human potential, right? But then that spiritual dimension you were asking about, Gabriella, I'm also a pastor as well. And I'm a pastor of the business people and professionals in my church. What I do there is that I bridge the gap, right, between faith and the marketplace. That's why I build bridge that gap between the faith and the marketplace execution, because I realized that people really needed that, right? Because lots of people, business people and professionals, if you're not careful, they kind of be soft on their faith because I'm always busy, I'm doing this and that. So I had to speak their language as well. So I didn't throw away my engineering background, okay? I just changed my raw material, right? I changed from concrete. So I used to design rooms. I used to design spaces, and sometimes even the outdoors as well. But now I design mindsets. That's what I do. I design mindsets. So for women looking to reinvent, so my advice is don't erase your past. Don't erase your past. Leverage it. Leverage what you have. Where were you standing before? Where were you before? Even in my industry, they always say, coach the people from where you came from. Okay. Coach where you came from, because they can identify with you. Okay. So your previous career, gave you skills that, that makes you unique. in your new career, right? Let me say that again. Your previous career or whatever your background was, will give you the skills that will make you unique in your new career or your new calling. That's what I would say. So it's really important. And I was just say that I also went from what's contribution? Because contribution is really doing the work, right? We're doing the work, we're doing. That's in Maxwell leadership. We talk about the 5 levels of leadership. In level 3, we're always doing, we're working, we're meeting the KPIs, but when are we going to have ownership? So that's doing the work, we're producing. But ownership is really securing the future. And whose future is securing? Not just yourself, pouring into other people, right? You're securing the future of other people, reproducing yourself. So your future is tied to the future of others. And I think that reinvention isn't about changing who you are, really. I hope I'm still answering your questions. So it's not just about, changing who you are. It's about revealing a new dimension of your capacity, which God had put in you in the first place, right? We have so much more capacity than we ever use. I mean, look at your mobile phone. Please, you can type in the chat. Please, what percentage of your mobile phone do you use, of the apps on your phone? Even the ones that came with your phone, forget about the ones you downloaded from App Store or from wherever you download from. What percentage of this phone are you using? So it's the same question I'll ask anyone here, or I ask other people. I ask them, how much of your capacity, do you even know what your capacity is, right? Do you know what your capacity is? Are you even using any, even 1/10 of it, you see? Because you cannot build a scalable African enterprise, like lots of us here doing enterprise or in business or something in a silo, right? You can't. So you need to tap back, go back into wherever you came from, right? So reinventing really is not changing who you are. It's really about revealing a new dimension. Okay, so you've got capacity. There are no limits to what God has put in you. And for me, I look at my reinvention. I don't know if it's finished yet. I don't know if it's finished yet. And I'm letting God take control of whatever because He's put in me. And just moving on. So for me, that's just a short I just want to share that. So it's really important that, like I said, moving contribution, it is a work. Level 3 leadership, we need to move to level 4, level 5, where we start making not just impact for ourselves, winning awards and accolades, but I would say the win is really what you have reproduced and securing the future of others as well that you also oversee or who have come in contact with you. So that's my take on that. Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Grace. I think you have brought new light into, various things. My highlights would be that ownership is about securing the future, reproducing yourself in other people. And reintervention is not about changing. It's just about revealing a new you, which has already been in you. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And Christine, this question comes to you. As women, I feel like there's great importance when it comes to collaboration and institutional influence. And you have operated within large global institutions. Often emerging women leaders feel very disconnected from established decision-making circles. And we are here talking about ownership, securing the future, which means you're reproducing yourself in other people. So in your view, what role does intentional collaboration between emerging and established women leaders play in scaling impact? And practically, how do we move from mentorship to shared ownership, board seats and institutional influence? Women women supporting women. How do we do that, Christine?
Thank you so much, Gabriela. Shalom, Grace, Brielle. This is amazing. First of all, when you talk about intentional collaboration between emerging and established women leaders to scale impact, I believe that established women themselves need to collaborate first. In order to intentionally raise other women leaders. It doesn't happen by chance. And it's also very difficult for one person to really have impact to millions of women on our continent at scale. So it's really important. I just recall when Madame Yakan, myself, Jemima, we sat down as leaders in TWOW and made a decision after a TWOW conference that we must establish a timeless leadership and enterprise program. These were established women leaders who actually developed a program that worked to of course, drawing on our expertise, knowledge, but also on other experts, men and women, to empower young women leaders to scale their businesses or development programs and also to impact their spheres. And I think it starts from us established women leaders collaborating. Now, practically, how do I move from mentorship to shared ownership, board seats, institutional influence? I've had to reinvent myself because I was in the UN. And now I'm an entrepreneur. I have a startup. It starts with a mindset saying, okay, I've done what I can here. Now I need to reveal myself in another sphere of work. Not easy, takes courage. But I just want to say that coming back to the issue of mindsets, many women are seeking to thrive in jobs and careers. But the world we live in today clearly reveals that that is not enough. We must see our jobs, women must see their jobs just as a springboard to wealth creation and financial independence. Those of you who have read Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow, he talks about 4 ways to produce income. The first is as an employee. Where you have a job and you get money from your time. The second is being self-employed. You own a job, but still you have to money, you have to put in your time. And the third is a business owner, where you own a system and people work with you and you scale. But then the ultimate for him is as an investor. You own investments and your money works for you. You don't work for the money, but the money works for you. And I believe we need to move women from just working for another person's vision. Yes, use that as a springboard to save money, to invest your little money so that they can multiply, so that eventually you are able to set up your business. Secondly, we need new business models, because you said, how do we move from mentorship to mentorship to ownership? We need new business models which turn women from employees to shareholders. I keep giving the example of Mangwanani Spa in South Africa, which is a profitable business, but they employ women from very poor backgrounds, train them, and after a year of good performance, give them an opportunity to become shareholders. This means that they are dealing with multi-generational poverty. By the time they retire, they will receive dividends from a thriving business. Secondly, in our mentorship programs, we need to graduate from SACCOs, which are so small-minded, survival-minded, to investment clubs that are professional with shared long-term goals of wealth creation not, of course, quick business turnarounds and deals. I believe that established women leaders have the possibility to establish investment clubs, which can become powerful economic institutions that increase, the wealth, influence, and visibility of its members. And these clubs can emerge into women-led investment funds, venture capital, angel investor networks, and so on. And when you begin to gain that level of wealth and presence in the market, you easily begin to have the ability to influence policy and influence your sector. Of course, that has to be intentional. We need to remember, though, the big book says in Ecclesiastes 9:16, that wisdom is better than strength. Nevertheless, the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. As women, we may shout, get PhDs, write sensible books, make statements to try and change policy, to change our world. But if we do not hold wealth, our voices are despised. This is evident right from the household level, to the business and political arenas. So we need to know that wealth opens doors. Also, mentorship needs to go beyond survival in a workplace to indispensable success that gives women power to negotiate for higher position, higher pay, and where possible, partnership. We tend to mentor women just to get through that day. We should deliberately focus on the vision towards financial independence and the ability to retire early. TWOW, we've worked with TWOW, for example, to facilitate board membership. That is so important because that's where we deal with aspects of limiting, helping women to overcome limiting self-perceptions, to gain confidence, but also to go beyond learning the normal roles of board directors, to understanding the board dynamics, especially in a highly male-dominated or charged business political environment. It should not be about surviving the board, but excelling in complexity. And lastly, in all of this, I believe women need guidance and a support system that enables them to balance their double and triple shift, business, family, community. It's all about contribution. We need to, I know this sounds quite domestic, but I would count women-led platforms and networks truly professional when they begin to address their members' triple shift. We need to start taking care of each other when we always take care of each other when somebody dies, but can we use our platforms and networks to offer affordable services for child and elderly care, for making ready meals, family meals, laundry, and other domestic tasks, And just to conclude, Inoza, the Inuka Ongoza Africa means Arise and Lead Africa. We are establishing a senior women leadership circle to expand members' capacity for success and significance in their sphere, but also a safe space to address their ongoing critical challenges. I think this is quite important for all of us. I'm sorry if I've spoken too much, but I hope it was useful.
Oh, not at all, Christine. I think this is an in-depth, word of knowledge that we definitely needed to hear. And we are so grateful. There's so many comments flooding in the chat box. A poor man's wisdom is despised. If we don't hold wealth in our voices, if we don't hold wealth, our voices are despised. Before we influence, we must serve as role models. We are taking notes, and this is what I love to see. And this is why gatherings like these are very important. So thank you so much, Christine, for sharing those wise words and giving us knowledge for us to work with. So I would open the floor for one or two questions. if there are any questions to any of our speakers at all, please do feel free to
Actually,
put it
Gabriella,
to.
since we lost time, if we
Okay.
can if you can transition to Yvonne,
Okay.
so that we
Okay.
can have our final two speakers contribute, and then we can
Take the
open the
questions.
floor. And, if everyone is available, I know we lost probably about 10 minutes. If you have the time to stay on a little longer, we would love for you to do that so we can extend the session a little bit and give us some more time for dialogue. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, so just to wrap everything up, ownership is structural, financial, psychological, institutional, and contribution builds value, ownership captures value. So as we transition into segment 2, and I just love the fact that Christine touched on the importance of wealth. We move naturally into the capital conversation, okay? Because leadership without capital is limited leverage. So I will now hand over to the brilliant Yvonne Uklo, who will guide us into the next dimension of this dialogue, diaspora capital, remittances, and equity participation. Yvonne, the room is yours.
Thank you so very much, everybody, and good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are.
Good
Jane,
morning. Good morning.
I'm supposed to be in Accra, but I'm actually in Beijing, China, and it's midnight for me. Yeah, but this is exciting, and thank you everyone for staying on. So in this second segment,
Yvonne, could I
yes,
just interject just for 1 second? I wanted to ease a bit of the pressure that I think we're all feeling. If we could just be kind enough and ask everybody that we could just give ourselves 10 more minutes grace so that Yvonne does not have to breathe through this segment and we're able to enjoy our speakers. Can we all give ourselves that grace? Thank you so much. Yvonne,
Thank you,
on this.
Excellency. Thank you,
Yeah,
Excellency.
awesome.
Thank you, Excellency. So, this second segment, when I first saw the topic, my mind started to race, like I said to Jane, building equity through diaspora capital. And the big question for my three speakers would be, how do we build trust and transparency in cross-border investments to encourage more women to participate as investors? Now, in 30 seconds, I will tell you the things that run through my mind, and you can please punch holes in them. When I first saw this, one of the things that came to me, and Brunel, honestly, we should stop saying Africa and the Caribbean. Let's just say Africa. Because when you said ASU, I thought of Susu in Ghana. And then my mind went to the northern part of Ghana, which has the village savings and loans associations, which is women just putting money together on a weekly basis, exactly as you described, and using that as capital to invest in other women's businesses. In my mind, this question is asking how we transition from a savings/loans culture into an equity culture. And the point is that it's not foreign to us from the way I see it. It's there, the infrastructure is there in native wisdom. And the question is, how do we transition this, with perspective to diaspora capital? And a few things I picked from the session before about sharing a vision helps us to grow team support. So what if in that SUSU or ASU or VSLA system, everybody understood what your vision was, and instead of it being a savings/loan system, they were actually investing in your business, for example. You don't need to own everything you contribute to. You could probably have equity or shares was another thing that came up, which bridges into this topic. And then old skills leverage new careers. I think in educated circles, we will call those board seats, whether advisory or governance. But in these are savings and loans systems or ecosystems, how are we lending our wisdom to another woman to help build her enterprise, knowing that the contributions we're putting together week on week and putting into her business is partly owned by us as well, right? And then securing our future by investing in other people's dreams. So if there were 17 or 10 or 12 women, and I think 12 is the optimum number because every month somebody takes money, it's what is normal in Ghana. What if by being in these ecosystems, we automatically were stakeholders in 12 businesses, right? And the last point I write down from the session before is that if we do not hold wealth, we will be despised even though we have wisdom. Now, years ago, when I worked with Jane on a USAID project, we did a field trip to northern Ghana where we sat 2.5, almost 3 hours, waiting for a collective of women who owned a maize storage facility. And maize was out of season, and those women had a holding facility where they had kept the excess produce from their farms. And until they released maize into the marketplace, everybody was paying very high prices for maize. So I try to rationalize the wisdom and the nuggets that we've said from the first segment. And I try to draw on real life experiences to ask my speakers. First, Heather, CEO of Intentional Asset Management, and Brunel and Kimberly, respectively. How do we build trust and transparency in cross-border investments to encourage more women to participate as investors? So in no particular order, Heather, if you will, you could give us your take on what you think about what we're talking about
Yes,
today.
Yvonne, Brian once already, so it'll be Heather and then Kimberly. We had to
Fantastic.
flex the timing.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
Heather. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Yvonne. And thank you to everyone that is here for this incredible conversation, and to Jane and the other hosts of this room. I'm a big proponent of women being really powerful, potent, and purpose-led. And when we do come together in these types of rooms, really it's kind of a suspension of the current reality, and the dreaming is available to all of us, and we support each other in doing that. And I think that is really alchemical. It's very powerful. And so I'm honored to even be here. So that is I think this space is a perfect place to be asking these questions. Maybe for a little context, my background wasn't always in finance, and so I do appreciate the transition that people go through in their careers, and I found this place in life where I'm at really on purpose, because I believe that capital is the greatest, and it's not a belief, this is just the truth is that capital is the greatest tool that we collectively all use, and it is neutral, but how are we using it, and how's it being applied, and is it solving problems, or is it being filtered in ways that are healthy for ecosystems, or is it lopsided or imbalanced? And so when we're talking about the continent, and we're talking about how to better leverage the wealth on the continent to be operating like equity versus, call it, grants, it bears additional kind of room for expanded concepts, expanded understanding, and expanded language for everyone that's involved. I think that we have defaults that we go through as people that unless they're kind of challenged, will remain the status quo indefinitely. And so one of the main defaults that we see in the continent today is there is the money that flows in through remittances from the diaspora is operating like grants, right? It's operating like money that you don't get a return on investment for. And that is a one and done type of transaction. And it's done to the tune of $100 billion a year in the continent. Like, that is huge. So the continent, and that's only just diaspora money coming in. That isn't talking about all the money that is in continent, in countries that is being circulated. And when you put it into context like that, it's imperative to recognize that the continent is wealthy. There is a lot of wealth. There is a lot of capital flowing. There is a lot of value. There is a lot of equity that could be spread around. And so, as women that are formidable forces, bringing into our narrative, our narratives and our language and how and our frameworks for operating, thinking about equity versus just doing the right thing, sending some money here because ABC versus applying even a portion of that capital towards something that's longstanding, could have ripple effects on your life and the life of your community, as well as your family members down the line. And so it's this conversation is critical. So I want to bring it to kind of the to answer the question. One of the things that we have the pleasure of doing is working with Jane and the AIN team around creating a platform called Six Africa, because there isn't a singular place for anyone to find all of the available investment opportunities that the continent does represent. You have to dig, and you have to find, and you have to know someone, and you have to be in the right place, the right time to find alternatives that do create this equity. And we're in this term of equity, I am not speaking of sweat equity. I'm not speaking of necessarily earned equity for a company. I'm talking about you've invested into a stock, you've invested into some ownership stake with capital, and that has a return on investment in time. And that's something that I think we will through the Six Africa platform, we expect to be able to do a lot of matching around that, a lot of access points for investors to be able to say, okay, I'm giving $100 a year. How about 10 of it go somewhere that has a return to me and isn't all just granted? And so that's something that, at when you take it to the macro level, you have $100 billion in remittances every year. You take 10% of that and turn it towards equity or turn it towards investments, you've kind of changed the economic equation. And then if women are the ones participating in this, because women are the ones who are always thinking about their families and thinking about their communities and doing everything that they can and driving a lot of these remittances, having additional tools for prolonging their ability to hold that wealth and grow that wealth is critical. So the last thing that I want to say around reducing the barriers for women to be able to participate in this way goes back to a lot of the comments that have already been made today around mindset. And I think the one piece that I would add to, I don't want to repeat all these incredible comments, but the one thing I would say is there's an unlock when it comes to permission. And often we wait for permission. We wait for permission from someone else. We want someone else to tell us it's okay. They probably won't. They're not thinking about you. And so you need to tell yourself it's okay. You need to give yourself permission. You need to determine for yourself, what is it that is aligned with you? What is it that would be the best use of your talents and your background and your passion and the calls that you have that only you can hear? Then you have to say, well, I heard it and I have permission. I'm going to show up in this room. I'm going to sit at this table and you're going to have to listen to me talk. And that kind of unabashed, like, framework mental shift turns into a nervous system shift, turns into a physical shift, and it may ruffle feathers, and those feathers should probably be ruffled, because if that because that shouldn't be something that does ruffle. And so if it does, there's some biases that the other person is holding that isn't yours. And so it's also, how do you disconnect from the responses of you stepping in your power? And so I think I'll pause and stop there and turn it back over to you. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you so much, Heather. I note, how do we I note a few things: bringing equity instead of doing the right thing, which is remittances and giving grants. I know you mentioned, how do we invest stake, taking on the habit of investing. And the question in the back of my mind is, about 51% of women-led businesses are informal. And so how do we structure investment in the informality, in the women-led business space, is a thought that's in the back of my mind. And don't wait for permission, give yourself permission. And on this note, let me tell you a 15-second joke about a man from another African country that came to Ghana to have a conference. He gave me a fantastic brief about what he wanted to do and all the big people he was bringing into the room. And he said, "So what do you bring to the table?" And God's honest truth, I don't know where I found the confidence, but I said to him, "Mr. Linus, I'm bringing the table. I don't know if you have a chair." Now, it felt incredibly amazing after I did it, but I don't know if I've done it again since, but it was amazing. So I hear you on giving yourself permission. I don't know how to make a habit of that, but thank you for saying that. But that thought just came back to my mind. His reaction was, "Oh, I see." So yes, thank you, Heather. Kimberly, if you don't mind, your take on our question, if you do have a table or a chair: how do we build trust and transparency in cross-border investments to encourage more women to participate as investors?
Yes. Well, first, let me just say thank you to Jane and Ambassador and for really bringing this convening together with such a great group of women here. I've been inspired from the previous session that brings the body of this work together in dialogue. And just to even give some background perspective with myself, and I'm coming from a diaspora lens, born in Flint, Michigan, but my roots is from Haiti by way of Nigeria, but I live here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm an integrative interdisciplinarian. I study processes and systems, and I look at ways to how we can solve community and ecosystem challenges. And I do that with an international business administration and data analytics lens. But how did I get here? It was just my journey that led me into this space. You come from Southeast Michigan, and this is once the area where it was the heartbeat of America. It was the automotive industry. You had the Motown movement. You had middle class making things happen, and then all of a sudden, you're seeing jobs lifted up, and they're gone to China because of the geopolitical space that many of us don't really pay attention to. And so you see your local community impacted by systems, and then I moved to the second largest banking capital here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm finding myself in private lending administration, and this is where it's the highest division in the bank. And you're seeing that African Americans are not included in those banking portfolios. You ask yourself, why? Why is this the case? And so for me, a woman of faith, and this is another thing that I do appreciate about this group of people. I've heard scriptures uttered, I do truly believe in godly principles. They're very important to me with my walk, with my journey, how I'm ushered into different rooms. But the key is to, when you think about who you are and you value thought, you value word and you value written, and then you read what's written, and then it becomes manifested, that is wealth. And so when we think about how we align ourselves globally or diplomatically or from a system focused approach to, and I'm bringing myself in the room because there are strategies around this group of people that I hear opportunities on how we could actually build and drive impact. But it comes from, how do we build trust in a cross-border perspective? Because there's dynamics that separated us, right? From how things are being done over there and how things are being done over here. You have to really understand these systems, these structures, and then the relationships that comes through clarity and consistency and shared accountability. And so for women, when we now are declared African Diaspora, the sixth region, someone said, don't say Africa or the Caribbean, but if we just said Africa, the diaspora, we must, we ability, and then having the cultural competency of, just the dynamics. I hope you guys can hear me because my internet is saying the connection is unstable, but we'll figure that out. But we need to really understand on both sides of the borders, the legal structures, the culture, how to navigate our tertiary systems. We face challenges with transparency. And so I think there is, and it's one thing, we have documentation, but sometimes we can build, with what we have planned, and we can have documentation to support that, but then we could lose sight of what we started, right? And we can go into convenings in different rooms, and then there's other thoughts that come together that shapes the way you may come back into the room where you started. But the path of how the communication has to connect, it has to be clearly transparent so that our expectations truly align. When we think of solutions or how do we have accessible access to our resources or our investment or anything like that, that's one thing, but validation is also important to how we build trust. And so when I think from a diaspora woman, I'm looking at ways how to co-design or how to, structure not our afterthoughts, but how to bring together what is fragmented or unclear with any requirements to how we supposed to come together. Because we have inconsistent rules all over the place, right? So if we could build trust by creating a clear, accessible pathway, not only just with standardized documentation, but with compliance expectations, the tools we are going to use to be able to build capacity around the work that we can do together. Bring forth that when we say integrity, it's not just it's used a lot, but it really is the quality of seeing things all the way through. That is and when we say mentorship, it's really peer-to-peer. Like, how do we make sure we are like tying in these linkages in the way that we see things or we understand or what's coming, what's honestly coming to us. It's important for us as women. I just love the dialogue from the previous session. Because when we form partnerships as we can really, and it kind of leads into probably the second question that you're going to ask, because it's like now I'm thinking about how we, through our partnerships, we have institutional partnerships, right? But then we have partnerships, but then if we know what's going on with our institutions, right? There's ways that we can help reduce risk on how we advance investment strategies. And so I think the intentionality, when we think of our educational systems or where there's in the private sector side with investment, and then you have our educational systems, how can we build a trusted pipeline together that advances women entrepreneurs? And it would take shared accountability for us to do that. It will take for us to recognize, us as women and as economic actors. We have been not underrepresented, but we've been unsupported. And so there's a pathway to how we have to bring that support together. And that's the way I see ourselves reflected in how we can build trust, across the cross border. So that's my thoughts around that. We don't need permission to lead global markets. We need platforms that honor our expertise. That's what we need. And we have the capabilities of protecting our own interest, and we can accelerate our own impact. And I believe we're doing that right now. We're doing that right now as we speak. So when we build ecosystems, it's rooted in trust. That's it, but it requires transparency, it requires integrity, it requires shared prosperity, and we don't just participate, we transform.
Thank you so very much, Kimberly. That's a lot to be thinking about, but I agree. I think you questioned how do we resolve our challenges with transparency. I hear you calling out education, and I took the liberty to say girls entrepreneurship clubs because you want to train the next group of women to understand the value of investment, and that's really not grants, and it's money that's supposed to go around and build the next woman. I hear you on platforms that honor expertise, and then building ecosystems that are rooted in trust like we have. Now, personally, my take on this question, I said I had three words written down: integrity, systems, and technology. You see that mobile money and mobile money wallets are working great on the continent. How can we use our indigenous systems of supporting each other and have a hybrid of that and technology and build systems so that remittances, diaspora remittances, become investments much rather than just remittances and grants? I know Jane had a few words to share as far as this was concerned. And I see Burnell is back in the room. Jane, if you will, we could take Burnell's comments and then we come to you.
Yeah, mine were more of ending reflections, so that's fine.
Yes, please. So Burnell, our question was, how do we build trust and transparency in cross-border investments to encourage more women to participate as investors? If you will, if you have any thoughts on those. She's probably still distracted.
Yes.
So I see in the comments, so I see in the comments a few things from Reverend Brenda. Did you want to say something, or are you on a different call? Okay, right. So I see a few comments. Dr. Pam, Jane, you said Dr. Pam, African's Brain Bank. Thank you for joining.
Yes.
Yes, Anjali Majik said there's no reason why Susu cannot be adopted as a corporate business model, or why African nations don't develop their own Wall Street. Yep. Register and we'll be in touch from, excuse me, Excellency June. And Christine Musisi said that differences in culture and systems really, I missed that. The differences in culture and systems really can impact our ability to calibrate across borders. As you suggest, Kimberly, we need to have strong international or cross-border platforms that women can tap into. And I believe between the AIN and TWOW, there's a lot of that happening here in this conversation. And we can tap into that, you know. And Nadine said, truly outstanding, feeling very inspired by all these amazing leaders. So, ladies, those are the comments that I have. In closing out my session, I would like to say thank you to Heather and to Kimberly. Clearly, there's ways that we can work from the indigenous to the modern and to build on what we already have. We've called out systems, we've called out integrity, we've called out education, especially for the next generation. We are also talking, well, in tandem with education, we're also talking about platforms that honor expertise. We're talking about building ecosystems. And then I am questioning, how can we simplify tech for easy adoption? For, in the case of Ghana, and to a large extent the continent, 51% of businesses are informal businesses are owned by women. And so that's a clear majority of trade and investment on the continent led by women. So if we can engender integrity, build systems, utilize tech, and educate women, then maybe we can answer our question about how do we build trust and transparency and cross-border investments to encourage more women to participate as investors. Thank you all so very much. In the absence of further questions in the chat box, I'd like to turn this over to Jane for some reflections. Thank you, Shalom. Thank you, everybody.
If I could just interrupt a little bit, you know,
Yes.
in light of contribution to ownership, I think we have some very amazing people with us. We have Dr. Palm from Africa's Brain Bank. Yes, Dr. Pam, it's such an honor to have you on here with us. And we also have with us Emma Ingaruya. She is an outstanding cross-cultural social worker, and she's here with us. And I'll just like to acknowledge her presence with us today. Yes, so maybe towards the end we can get a few words from Emma. But yes, for now I would go ahead and pass it on to Jane to just give us her closing reflections. And Her Excellency, you can do that. And Emma, you can give us, you know, we just would love to hear from you, Emma. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. I would also like to recognize a special woman on the call as well, Carla Denizard-Cote, who is with World Vision. She's the Regional Director for West Africa. But to us, more importantly, she sits on the board of Africa Investment Network. Thank you so much for joining us, Carla. And I want to thank you, Gabriella, and Yvonne so much for moderating this session. You ladies did an incredible job. If we can all give them a round of applause or reactions on the screen. We thank you so much for guiding us through today's important conversation. As we bring this powerful discussion to a close, I want to take a moment to thank each of our incredible speakers for sharing your insights, experiences, and perspectives today. Your leadership, your stories, and your commitment to advancing women's empowerment remind us why conversations like this matter. I would also like to thank all of you for taking the time to join us. Your presence and your engagement and your willingness to be part of this are what make this community so meaningful. And thank you for being able to hop back off and hop back in, even though, you know, unknown forces tried to disrupt our conversation today. We were able to continue. I thank you for hopping back in and remaining engaged. International Women's Day is not only about reflection, it's about momentum. Today, we talked about leadership, we talked about enterprise, we talked about influence, and we talked about ownership. But perhaps the most important key takeaway is this: progress happens when we move from conversation to action. So each of us on this call today have a role to play. And we have a role to, help shape future, not just for us, but for our children, our grandchildren, our communities. Whether it's through mentorship, I encourage you to either mentor another woman or a young man, launching a new business, investing in our communities, stepping into leadership, or just supporting one another's growth. Every step forward creates ripple effects. At AIN, we are committed to creating platforms that bring people together to turn ideas into opportunity. I know that Heather talked about the Six Africa platform that we are creating to help mobilize diaspora capital. I encourage you to follow AIN on LinkedIn or Intentional Asset Management on LinkedIn, or visit our websites and to learn more about the platform and how you can be engaged as we move forward with our development. Through initiatives like the Global Africa Summit and growing our ecosystem of partners, entrepreneurs, and investors, we are working to strengthen connections across Africa within the diaspora and really the global business community. We are hosting the Toronto edition of the Global Africa Summit, July 30th in Toronto, and we will be in Charlotte, North Carolina, in partnership with the Black Wall Street Charlotte. Again, Shelton is on the call, our CEO, and then Kimberly, our speaker earlier from the GABA Center, will be working together to host the summit in Charlotte, and we encourage each one of you to join us in Charlotte in September. If today's conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to stay connected with us. So with that being said, I would like to hand it over perhaps to my sister Nyakan, if you want to give some closing reflections, or to either one of our moderators that wants to take us throughout the end of this call. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jane. It's wonderful to partner and move with you in this journey and all the other great speakers. I want to thank all our great participants from all over the world. I want to continue to echo what my co-host Jane has said. Thank you so much for making the time and joining, and also in the spirit of authenticity. You can see I'm actually speaking in candlelight because we've just got a national blackout. But it didn't deter me. I'm still here. I think we should be more and more authentic in our journeys as leaders, in our journeys as people. Thank you for staying on. I want to give a really, really warm thank you to Ms. Christine Musisi, who is also one of our board members, for her time, her belief in the vision, and in our shared dream with all our various collaborators on this call. I want to thank Ms. Shalom Onyeri, who is actually our champion for our empowerment pillar at TWOW. You've all got to experience just what kind of innovative and conventional kind of thinking that we drive in our work. I want to thank all the other people in absentia, Dr. Jemima, who is actually the Director for Women's Capital at the Africa Development Bank, who was to be here, but was not able to join the meeting, but she sends her remarks and her contributions to this conversation. We really, really know that we'll have an opportunity to connect with her. I want to take a little bit of time to recognize Ms. Emma Ngaruya. When we say the theme is give to gain, from contribution to ownership, we have to demonstrate by example. Ms. Emma is one of the young ladies that I've had the opportunity to mentor, and she has volunteered a lot of times in her life. A lot of us give time, give resources, give and give and give, and we never know where the gain is coming. Ms. Emma, who is actually based in California, a social worker with a Contra Costa County in California, got the Social Worker of the Year award just this week. And we'd love to give a shout out to her Emma, would you just say a few things, just 2 minutes or 1 minute, something to inspire us from your journey as we celebrate you, Miss Emma? Emma, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much, Your Excellency Nyakan June. And I really appreciate you all, ladies, to see you today. Brilliant minds, smart minds. And Dr. Nyakan, I'm really grateful for your mentorship. I'm big on mentorship, and I believe everybody should have a mentor and should have a mentee. We always have something to give and something to receive from our mentors. So thank you so much. I'm grateful this month to be recognized as the Social Worker of the Year. Our country, we have about 1,300 social workers from Department of Health, Department of the Public Defender, and Human Services. And so I've worked for the county for the last 8 years. And before then, I had the privilege of being in Kenya. And my background, I have a master's degree in psychology from USIL. And I had the privilege of being able to work with vulnerable population in different parts of the country, East, West. And most importantly, the one that resonates with me the most is working for a whole year. My dad was very big in giving to our communities, and he made sure I achieved that dream. It wasn't easy showing up every day, feeding children, cooking for them. We have sometimes, and most of the times, to be the servant leaders and to start from the grassroots and actually give what God has given us. One thing I've learned from Her Excellency Junior Khan is that we have to live by design and not by default. God created us with a purpose. He created us in his own image, and we are created by design. And so that is the one thing that drives me. Here in the US, I'm in San Francisco, California, and we have annual California worship experience. And mostly these are our first generation American youth from Africa. So we try to connect the American cultures and the African culture and bring all those minds together. We bring our leaders from the US, from Africa, and we just combine and also give back to the youth that is coming up. So I'm really grateful today. And I hope this is my first time attending this meeting, and I'm really inspired and have tapped so much. And I hope to join you again and again and again. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. For all of us on the call, this is not a conversation, an engagement that's ending here. We are modeling collaboration. We are modeling talking, moving from talk to action. And so even through our collaboration, at Timeless Women of Wonder, we're committed to empowering women, youth, and SMEs. You heard Christine talk about our Women in Leadership Enterprise Mentorship Program. A lot of transformative economic empowerment programs go on. And you have heard Jane talk about the Global African Summit, which is a platform that's bringing together opportunities for investment and connections, driving the change that we want. We are also hosting the Accelerate Africa's Growth Connect in Accra, Ghana, rotating every year in a different African country. So register. I encourage all of you to register so that you remain connected to all the work that we're doing, that we're putting together for you. I feel very strongly you will lack you will not lack any help, any connection, any solution. Everything is just one email, one phone call, one step away with a kind of powerful network that we are putting together. God bless you all. I pray that the impact that we have created here continues to give back on and on. Ms. Kimberly Nelson, so wonderful to see you again. I look forward to collaborating to be able to put together even greater things. And all of you, I could speak about each and every one of you. God bless you. Gabriela, over to you.
Thank you so much. God bless you
And
all.
Gabriela, one quick thing. Dr. Pam, she is also hosting something on Sunday. I just wanted her to share really quickly on actual International Women's Day, then we close it out. Dr. Pam?
Yes, thank you so much, Sister Jane. And I want to acknowledge all the powerful ladies here on the platform. I am very impressed with what I heard. Always gladdens me to see sisters coming together to support each other. Real quick, on Sunday, International Women's Day, we are going to have an amazing young lady. I believe all of you here know who she is. Her name is Lady Jane Randolph Osei. She's going to be our special guest on Africa Online. Africa Online is our sister organization. Africa's Brain Bank is our main organization. So the link is on the chat. Please join and come listen to this young lady. The show is unscripted, and I want to encourage all of you here because you all are powerful ladies to come and share your story. The show is unscripted, so I can't tell you what's going to happen. But the anchor is a retired professor of journalism and a legend from Cameroon. I'll also be on there. I serve as the CEO and chair of that organization. But I do most of my work with Africa's Brain Bank. So I really want to encourage all of you ladies to tune in. March makes us 10 years on the air. Every single Sunday, we are on that program, that broadcast. The last Sunday of the month, we discuss a health matter. And every March, we honor women. And Sunday, we are going to have our beautiful and brilliant sister as our special guest. And all of you here are invited as our special guest. Thank you, Sister Jane.
Thank you so much, Sister Pam. Gabriella, close us out.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been so informative. I'm sure we've learned so much. Thank you all for your time. To our lovely speakers, thank you for your wisdom and your knowledge. And thank you to our wonderful host, Jane Osei, and Her Excellency Nyakan June for coming to put this together. So in the absence of anything, I would adjourn this webinar. God bless you all. Stay safe and remember to empower your communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.